MHA podcast. MHA podcast.
MHA podcast.
Hey, I am hosting this show, Quinn.
I'm sorry.
You are taking the words right out of my mouth. Todd's drooling at the mouth. Let me get you a tissue right here.
I'm worried that he's Nick Foles.
I see the word regression plastered all over his stats.
Well, and I cheated a little bit here.
You bastard, how could you? This is a cheat-free zone, a Tom Brady-free zone, and you're funking it up.
If I want to win a fantasy championship, I don't want my quarterback doing that crap.
I have Theo Riddick in front of.
Okay.
What the
Wow. Eddie Lacy's going to be great. How could you, in your right mind, in your sane mind, Eddie Lacy's going to be great?
I don't like doing it, but I'll agree with Todd. I totally disagree with Todd.
Especially with Quain. I hate drafting next to Quain. I'm just gonna have that bottle of tequila right next to me. See, people should be listening to the show just to strategize around us. Happy New Year to the MHA owners. It's 2018. Thank you, Mikey, pointing me over, saying it's ready to roll. We're ready to roll to bring you the final podcast of the 2017 Mile High Affiliates fantasy football season. I'm Eric Lansing, and of course, joining me is the usual suspects and Mikey Renault, the runner-up of this season. Todd's also here. Todd Diamond, he finished third. I finished fifth. We all made the playoffs this year. That's exciting, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. I mean, making the playoffs is always a good thing. And
I'm used to it.
Of course he would say that.
Mikey had a good season.
Yeah.
So before we get on to talk about what's ahead on the show, why don't you guys tell me, we'll start with Todd, that one thing that kind of stood out to you this fantasy football season. It was an interesting one. Out of just looking back on it all, when you guys are going through your notes, what kind of stood out to you?
I would say kind of like a lot of slow starts to a lot of the top fantasy players, including my top pick, Le'Veon Bell. Kind of took him a little bit to get going. Now, granted, he was injured and a little bit of a holdout too, so there was a little bit of a rust. So it kind of took him a little bit, a few games to kind of get more acclimated. So,
Mikey, there's got to be a bigger spectrum on the entire fantasy football season outside of Todd's Le'Veon Bell pick here. But what stood out to you?
Yahoo was right. I mean, after the draft, they said that.
I wanted you guys to overall. You're talking about your own team.
No. I'm not talking about my own team.
What do
after
you mean?
the
Yahoo
draft,
was right.
Yahoo said that the team with the best draft was Kilgore Trout. The only one that had an A.
Wow, you guys really butchered this question. Just
right.
butchered.
Okay,
I figured you guys would say the injuries. Injuries. I mean, Sports Illustrated had a freaking magazine cover about all the injured players on this year, which obviously makes it just rough for fantasy owners trying to get around it. Now, for one, it wasn't just one team or two teams that had injuries. Everybody dealt with injuries this season for the most part, and so that's what I was kind of looking for. And all right, so that's okay. You know what? I blame me. I should be a better host than that. Oh, God. Terrible, Eric. Terrible.
How about this one? The emergence of rookie running backs, of the success
all right,
of some.
I like that.
So you have Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Alvin Kamara, and everything like that. So I'll put it to you this way: for next year, those three might be in the obviously that's for another podcast, but might be in the top five next year for running backs. So the emergence of rookie running backs and how quickly their impact affected a lot of teams this year.
Yeah, I think, the Zeke Elliott thing from last year, he was kind of the really the only one to kind of be in the top. I think he was in the top 5, obviously, but in the top 10 for sure. But, yeah, you're right. I kind of had a rant early on. I thought rookies were overrated, and people are kind of liking them because they haven't failed, and we didn't have a wide receiver that kind of panned out, or really tight ends either. But we had a couple quarterbacks that did well, and then we had running backs as well. So some rookies kind of panned out.
Injuries always happen.
Yeah, but this was on a different scale.
I don't know. I've always said it matters a ton what you do in your draft from the middle to the bottom.
Yeah.
And creating that depth. So, I mean, if you didn't draft well down there after we've been telling you to do that in 2 years' worth of podcasts, well, then it's your own fault. That's the way I see it.
Be diligent on the waiver wire. The one thing that I noticed, and I've just listening to podcasts and reading things online, that fantasy scoring in general is down across the league. just kind of going, and I was like, how do I quantify this? How do I put this in writing? And so I kind of went through the top major positions in quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers, and took how many, like, what were the top numbers from each position. So if I go through wide receivers really quick, in 2015, there were 13 players with 200-plus points. In 2016, there was only 5 players with 200-plus points. This year, there was only 2 wide receivers that had 200-plus points this year. Only 2, after having 13 2 years ago. So, like, that kind of stood out to me. Running backs, kind of similar. 2015, there were 6 with 200-plus. In 2016, there was 11 with 200-plus, and there was 2 with 300-plus. This year, there was only 6 running backs with 200-plus points, and there was 2 with 300-plus. And then with quarterbacks, 2015, there was 1 that had 800-plus points, and then 10 with 700-plus. Last year, 2 quarterbacks had 800-plus, 7 with 700-plus points. And this year, 2 quarterbacks with 700-plus points. That was it. Just 2.
It makes sense, though.
Why is that? Injuries, I think, play a factor.
Injuries is big, but you're kind of, in the NFL, you're in a transition period a little bit. So you have a lot of the great quarterbacks that are starting to get older, that are not in their prime anymore. And then you've got a group of young bucks. But you kind of have this group in the middle that's just kind of like, bleh.
Sure.
So it's not like it was where you've got the legends of, Drew Brees and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and all these guys that were just throwing up these numbers. Those guys are old now.
Yeah.
So they're not able to do, what they were doing before.
And we haven't really seen the emergence of the young guys kind of take that next step either. And I know we'll talk about Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, but I think a lot of us thought like, oh, they're going to take that next step. And they never really took that step this year. But I think overall, I think my point is valid that fantasy football scoring was down this year. And so just kind of go by those numbers. That's kind of how it goes. So that's kind of what stood out to us about the season. What's going to come up on the show? We'll kind of review, to Mikey's dismay, the championship game and kind of how it unfolded. I was sitting next to Mikey as it went through, so I can kind of help out a little bit. But Mikey will describe that as he lost to Kilgore Trout. We have to congratulate Kilgore Trout as he won the championship. We'll give you our MVPs, our busts, and those who kind of came out of nowhere to make a difference this year. We'll look back on the first 3 rounds of our August draft to see how it all played out. We'll see how well our host did in terms of where we were right, where we were wrong. We won't spend a ton of time on that because I know Mikey was right a lot, and we don't want to make his ego bigger than it has to be.
Yeah.
And if we have time, which we'll make it work, is try to do an early, way too early first-round mock. So we'll see how that goes. So let's get into it. Recapping the MHA championship game that took place between number 1 seeded Hot Tamales and number 2 seeded Kilgore Trout. Kilgore Trout owner Joe Vaccarelli winning his first MHA championship. Mikey, kind of just tell us how the day kind of unfolded. There's a couple times you were ready to throw in the towel. Then you made a little bit of a run to make it close, but Kilgore ended up pulling it out at the very end.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny how it worked. Sunday was like a kind of anticlimactic almost for me because of what happened on Saturday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yep. Yeah.
So, after that Vikings-Packers game, and I ended up with like 29 or something points before Sunday even happened between 3 players.
Which included your quarterback.
Which included the quarterback. I was trying to figure out different things that I could do to possibly, up my points to possibly have a chance, and there wasn't a lot. I needed a lot of stuff to happen to get there. Now, I will say the guys that I had on Sunday did pretty well, but it wasn't enough, and it was disappointing. Still is disappointing.
still pretty raw.
It's a little raw.
It's a little raw there. So Kilgore Trout wins 129-105. Mikey mentioned Case Keenum with 25 points. Fitzgerald, man, that dude is incredible. Yeah. Can we just say that now? Yeah. Hall of Fame. Put him in the Hall of Fame right now, like tomorrow. Let's celebrate Larry Fitzgerald. What another fantastic season from the wide receiver. He had 21 points for you. Melvin Gordon played really well. McCoy, both those guys were really good for you all season long. Kareem Hunt, what a year for a rookie. 34 points from Breeze, which was, you thought maybe in the fourth quarter Breeze would get going, and you're like, oh, no, we still have a fourth quarter to go, and he didn't really. I mean, when you have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, you don't have to do too much in that regard. But true. Just 21 completions. But Fournette, double figures. Boy, how about Antonio Gates? What a great call by Joe Vaccarelli. Yeah. I mean, Gates hadn't done much of anything all year long, but Hunter Henry out for the season. threw him in, 16 points, probably had his best game of the year by far.
Yeah, old man Gates just keeps doing it every single year at this point. But
So congratulations to Joe. His first championship. He's been in the league for quite a long time, and so it was cool. Really cool to see him get it. And I'm excited because Mikey's still 3 buddies with me for the time being.
For the time being.
For the time being. What was that stat? You want to throw out that stat about how many times you've been in the championship the last few years? Championship game?
Yeah.
Isn't it like the last 4 or 5 or last 3 or 4 or something? I guess I can look it up.
Yeah, I think it's 4 out of the last 5.
So which is still pretty impressive.
yeah, in one of those ones, yeah.
But yeah, the last few years, Mikey's come up on the short end of that. But anyway, he's done a really good job. So yeah, so he finished second last year, finished second in 2016, did not finish in the top 3 in 2015, but won it in 2014 and was second to Todd in 2013.
Yeah,
so that's still really impressive.
Yeah.
So nice going, Mikey. As much as we don't like to watch
You remember those commercials like back in the 90s, If I Could Be Like Mike? And you thought that they were talking about Michael Jordan?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, no.
So
Let's
get into quarterbacks in terms of we're going to go through our positions. We'll start with quarterbacks, our MVPs, our busts, and our surprises. And since Mikey got to talk about his team, we'll let Todd kind of start this up. Todd, give me one MVP from your quarterback list, or from the quarterback season. It doesn't have to be from your team, obviously, but just in the whole scope of MHA, who is your fantasy quarterback MVP?
There wasn't an MVP quarterback on my team, that's for sure. But Russell Wilson was the MVP. 754 fantasy football points. First of all, the weapons he has around him, except for Doug Baldwin, that dude just makes everything happen. I mean, you're thinking like, God, let's put some weapons around him, but he just made everything happen, whether he was throwing or running. So I know, obviously, in our league, it was pretty close between him and Tom Brady, but I think Russell Wilson just did, put up at least 30, 40 points at least a game. So Russell Wilson was my MVP in our league.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with it. He was the 6th quarterback drafted. He was drafted in the 5th round by Kevin, and he had some amazing point totals. He had 60 multiple times. He didn't have 4,000 quite a bit. He had 34 pass touchdowns, which is not a ton. But in terms of our spectrum of quarterbacks, we didn't have a quarterback that really stood out this year.
Exactly.
We didn't, and I can't give it to Russell Wilson, and here's why. If he played Russell Wilson every week, then I'd say yes.
He did.
But
for those who don't know, he had Alex Smith too, and he played both of them.
I looked it up. He pretty much played them almost exactly the same amount of time, half and half. So, if I agree with Eric that nobody really stood out, but if I was gonna say that there was an MVP to a team, then I was gonna say Kirk Cousins on Eric's team because he played a really big role on Eric's team.
Sure. When he did well, I won. When he didn't, I lost.
Right.
Yeah. That seems to be the theme, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But,
I get that.
okay.
Kirk Cousins, I drafted him in the 8th round. He was the 10th quarterback, and he ended up finishing 7th overall with 637 points. I kind of went with Big Ben, and only because we didn't have him. No one someone drafted him 11th overall, 11th quarterback, 8th round, and he ended up finishing 4th overall with all those weapons. And I know we were talking about it, and I guess we're jumping a little bit ahead in terms of what we're right about, what we're wrong about. Both of you guys said you had him as your top 10 quarterback, and he ended up finishing 4th overall. And so for him to be drafted in terms of value, he was probably drafted as a backup quarterback maybe, and then he ends up being, he had some pretty incredible games, especially down the stretch. So that's kind of the guy I had. And then obviously Brady had a really good year, although his last 4 weeks were pretty crappy. He didn't have anything over 39 in the last 4 weeks, so I wouldn't pick Brady. But for the crowd, and we kind of talked about it, but who were the top 5 quarterbacks that finished in our league point scoring system?
Tom Brady, Russell Wilson,
Have to believe
Roethlisberger.
that Drew Brees was still in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brady's one.
Okay.
Well, Brady and Wilson tied. Now, the way I did the scoring is I picked up the scoring. Our final week was 16, so I didn't include Week 17's points in these rankings. Because right now, Wilson actually has more if you go 17 games, but I did it after 16 because that's when our season ends. So Brady and Wilson were tied 1 and 2 at 697 points. So neither one of them made 700, at least in terms of that regard. But so you guys said Big Ben, he finished 4th. Breeze was 5th. Who were we missing?
Phillip Rivers, probably.
That's incorrect. He finished 8th.
Case Keenum.
No, he was actually way down there because he didn't really catch on until I think a little bit later. He finished 14th with 564 points.
Carson Wentz got hurt, so it's not him.
Wentz finished 9th. No, Goff was 10th. Now it's the most probably surprising quarterback. Who do you guys have?
Alex Smith.
There you go. Alex Smith actually finished 3rd overall, if you can believe that. He had some pretty incredible weeks, and it's amazing that Kevin made the playoffs, but he probably should have traded one of those guys, right?
Yeah.
To have Alex Smith and Russell Wilson, top 2, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
He ended up having 674 points, over 4,000 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He also ran for 355 yards and a touchdown as well. So, that's surprising, right? None of us. How bad were we bad-mouthing? And this, again, goes back to Kilgore Trot winning the championship. We were like, we don't want Tyreek Hill. We don't want anybody from Kansas City. He has Alex Smith throwing to him. And they end up winning the division. Yeah. Throwing for 4,000 yards.
Yeah,
we can all say we were wrong about that.
Right.
I guess we were all right about Kelsey. We all liked Kelsey, but
right.
That was about it.
That's
about as far as it went.
Because, I had Alex Smith as my surprise because I think, wow, did Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers, change jerseys or something like that? Because, we always think of Alex Smith as just a game-time manager, but not this, slinging the football down the field and putting up that many yards. So, yeah, for sure. I think we're all just like, we in bizarro world? Like, what's going on? So
yeah, he had a couple. He had 66 points to start the season, and then he had a couple 60s after that, a couple 50 burgers. He had some weeks where he had 29, 34, 37, but then another 60, a 45, a 44. So he's a pretty solid quarterback option. Who would have figured? It's a bad year for quarterbacks. Let's just say what it is. What other surprise? You got any surprises? Todd said his was Alex Smith. Anybody stood out to you? There was a couple for sure that stood out.
Case Keenum was obviously mine. That kind of fell into my lap, and I didn't expect him to be as good as he was. He was consistent point provider for me, getting anywhere from 45, 55 points every week.
Except in the championship.
Except for the championship.
But, he had 43 the week before, 50 the week before that, 46 before that, 52 before that. So, he was a fantastic pickup. So many great weapons over there. And obviously, about Thielen, and we'll talk about Thielen later on in the show. But just so many great weapons, and he did really well. Anybody else? I think Deshaun Watson, for the few weeks he was there.
Yeah, he was pretty awesome.
And, that's actually someone that I'm going to give Todd credit for, because we were talking about DeAndre Hopkins, and is he going to be good? And we're like, Savage, he's not better than Osweiler, whatever. But Todd was saying from the beginning, like, Deshaun Watson's going to come in and make DeAndre Hopkins a great wide receiver. Look at what he did. And you felt bad for Gonzo Katz for a second, but then he had Carson Wentz on his bench. And then he got hurt, and then he did end up not winning the championship.
And he was down to David.
And David Carr, who's obviously one of the busts, right? Is he a bust for you guys, David Carr?
Yeah, but I didn't really like him.
You didn't have him too high on your list to begin with?
No.
But he was so much worse than last year. And then obviously that affected Crabtree and Cooper, and I guess he had some good weeks with Cook. But, yeah, that was another guy we were talking about, well, maybe he was stepping to elite status. He just got paid. Maybe that didn't help, but he got paid. And he was another guy I thought would take another step. Maybe not elite status, but at least consistent. And he was just, oof. Raiders were bad this year.
They were propping the Raiders up going to the Super Bowl. They were like people were picking the Raiders to go to the Super Bowl, and now they just fired their head coach. So it just goes figure, right?
Any other busts?
Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
Yes.
We saw the regression, but still I got to put him up there based on where he was drafted.
Yeah, he was drafted as the 4th quarterback overall in the 4th round, and he would finish all the way at 16 with 19 touchdowns and 20 interceptions.
Yeah, it wasn't a good year for him at all.
Yeah, and we all like, well, maybe that Kyle Shanahan thing's not a big deal. Huge difference. Mm-hmm. Huge difference. Yep. And they snuck into the playoffs, but yeah, I don't think he had, and I don't know if we'll have time. I'll try to see if I can find it, but he didn't have any super major big games. He had a 46 at one point, 44, but he was terrible in playoff time, 22, 23, 33, 37. Oh man, just a bad year for Matt Ryan. So I think that's one of the things I said right is that I didn't believe it. It was an outlier. That everything worked right for them those 2 years. That year that he went MVP, and he just did not play well at all. I won't go. I kind of mentioned it. Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston both played like poo, and you had Winston for a while. That was kind of your guy until Keenum came onto your team.
Yeah.
But I thought both of those guys would kind of take that next step, and neither one of them really did.
Mariota is kind of a head scratcher in the sense that you don't know what kind of quarterback he's going to be. Because at times, he can beat you with his feet and throw, but it's almost like he's a big question mark. You just don't know what you're going to get out of him, especially in that offense. I mean, obviously got Delaney Walker and got some decent running backs, but I don't know. I think if you're going to choose, I'd still stick with Winston. I think Winston just has to grow up a little bit more.
Know. We saw some pretty disgusting Tampa Bay games this year.
Yeah,
he's just turnover prone.
Oh, fumbles everywhere,
because
interceptions everywhere,
immaturity.
Yeah,
immature.
Arguing with people on the field.
I agree with you there, but I think too if they can I think he tries to force a lot of passes too.
Like this really
because obviously with Mike Evans such a big target, he's thinking, okay, let me just throw it up to him.
They gave him more weapons. They gave him an elite. I mean, he's a rookie, so he's not elite, but I mean, he's got that ability. He's got that athleticism.
Howard, yeah.
They give him Deshaun Jackson to throw it downfield. Give him more, and he regressed so bad. And Mariota looked bad. The only thing this is where they finished in our scoring. Marcus Mariota, 21st. And the only thing that saved him was 5 rushing touchdowns. And those are fluky. So he could have been worse. And Jameis Winston was worse than that, 24th. He had just over 3,000 yards. Now, he only played in 12 games. He wasn't injured, but 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and only ran for 103 yards, which is, he likes to run a little bit more than that, I think.
Yeah.
But maybe his offensive line was just terrible. Like Josh McCown had a couple good weeks. Carson Wentz kind of broke out. I don't know if he's our type of quarterback, but, man, he was putting up touchdown numbers like no other. He would have been the touchdown leader if he did not get hurt. He doesn't throw a ton of completions, but, man, those touchdowns, he had 4 or 5 touchdowns. We're Bronco fans.
Yeah.
We saw it firsthand on just how good he was. All right, let's go into some wide receiver talk, and so let's get into our MVPs. I think there's a couple of really great wide receivers at the top. Mikey, who's your wide receiver MVP?
How could it not be Antonio Brown?
Sure.
Antonio Brown, he's so good. And he could have been MVP of the whole damn league. I mean, he's so good. I can see where other people could go Hopkins, because Hopkins was a guy like every week you could count on him scoring a touchdown every week. But until further notice, Antonio Brown is wide receiver MVP, wide receiver number 1, top 5 pick in the draft. And that's all I got to say.
See, and you all gave me crap when I said Antonio Brown number 1 and not David Johnson.
We had this discussion, and you'd still be wrong, other than the fact that David Johnson got hurt. But I mean, the running back totals are. I mean, let's do this. We'll just go through this really quick. Running back totals are, and I'm not going to name the player. I'm just going to name the top scores: 328, 293, 281, 239, 236, and those are the top running back point totals. Wide receivers: 234, 228, 185, 185, 180. So you can see running backs get more points already. So that's what we're trying to explain. We're not saying there's anything wrong with Antonio Brown. It worked out, for Antonio Brown. But we're just saying that running backs, if you get an elite option, are going to score almost 80 to 100 points more. We're just trying to help you, Todd.
I know.
That's what you're supposed to be on this show to understand.
It's opportunity.
I know.
Because the ball is, it's easy to go like the handoff as opposed to trying to find him downfield. But okay, yeah, Antonio Brown, he did not play. Not that I don't think it mattered in our league. But he did not play in our championship. He only had 3 points in the semifinals. So there's that. But, 21, 19, 32, 35. Just some big-time numbers. And he's just one of those guys. He's a playmaker. He's a game changer. How about the Hopkins? None of us thought that he was going to have this type of season. And for him to put up 234 points, close to 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns. A lot of that came from Deshaun Watson, but really it was Tom Savage. And who was after Tom Savage? Who was the one that ended up this season as our quarterback?
T.J. Yates.
They still found him. He just every week he's making. He had what is this one? Do I have it on my notes here? He only had one game with 10 or less, and that was an 8-point game. But outside of that, what a season. Are we drafting him high next year as such?
Is he going to go in the top 5?
I'm not saying top 5. Is he a first-round pick or is he a second-round pick? Let's ask that.
Wow, I don't know if I'm prepared to answer that right now.
It's early, but just give me your gut feeling. I know we hear the term a lot in recency bias, but
I think
you kind of have to in the second round.
I think it's a good idea to wait for that one for later in the show.
Okay, all right, Mikey's got something up his sleeve. All right, any other MVPs?
I went with one of my wide receivers, Jarvis Landry, the PPR machine.
It might have to be the MVP of the wide receivers.
What 100?
And I'll admit I was wrong on him.
Yeah,
103 receiving receptions. Excuse me. And it didn't matter who was throwing him the ball. I mean, obviously played in the slot, and 7 touchdowns. That's pretty good. He had Jay Cutler throwing him the ball. So
he was drafted in the 4th round there by Todd. He finished 3rd overall. I don't think we ever thought he wasn't good, but we never thought the touchdowns would come. Like, he's a big touchdown machine, but he had 8 touchdowns. Now, Jay Cutler played a big role in that as opposed to Tannehill. There was all that. Remember that talk where it was Devontae Parker. That's the guy that Jay Cutler's going to like because we saw it in preseason, I think. Man, what a season. 103 catches. Didn't get 1,000 yards despite 103 catches, but 8 touchdowns. They'll make up those point totals really quick. So that might be the MVP. I don't know. Keenan Allen's another guy who.
Yeah, but his takeoff was kind of like mid-season on.
Who's that?
Like,
Keenan Allen?
Yeah, like he was kind of slow to start, and then it's like a light bulb went off maybe like week 7 or so, and it just after that he exploded.
Yeah, I think I had him on one of my surprises, but what did he say? I have finished 5th overall, and he was drafted in the 3rd round. 7 games with 10-plus points, and he had 2 games with 20-plus points. So, yeah, I mean, I think we always said if he was healthy, he was good. But we were just like, no way. Because I remember, I went back and listened to the podcast. I know you listened to some of them, but just listing off the injuries he had since even when he was in college, none of us were willing to take a high pick, and Gonzo Cats reaped the benefits. He took the chance, and it worked out well. Any other surprises that stood out to you guys?
Robbie Anderson from the Jets.
Kilgore. Well, he was drafted by Kilgore, dropped, and then I think he eventually picked him back up in time for the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that whole Jets team in general. I mean, we didn't think they were going to do as good. Everybody's like, oh, they're just going to tank and just get the number. Well, they're not going to be that good, but surprised a lot of people. But
he eventually came on, and he had like 5 or 6 weeks in a row with double-digit points and had 25 against Carolina. So he's a guy that'll be on our radars for next year for sure. And I'm sure you got a surprise over on your end.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Thielen.
Mr. Thielen. And that'll go back to one of our board bets, which Mikey was right. Now, I don't have to go through all my notes, but we had a board bet on who would have the most points by the end of the season. Was it be Adam Thielen or Stephon Diggs? Thielen.
I squashed that. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
you squashed. Well, it's not that much. I mean, let's see. Thielen had 159 points. Stephon Diggs had a good year and had 133. So not a big difference, but he ended up finishing. I said it was ridiculous that he would finish as a number 1 wide receiver, and he finished 11th in the 12-team league. Nice job, Mikey. We have another board bet. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, Adam Thielen. Again, it didn't seem to matter who his quarterback was. He was just a fantastic wide receiver. I had him on here as well as one of my surprise guys. I thought I had more stats on him. Maybe I don't, but
Division II product.
Yep, there you go. Division II. Tyreek Hill was another guy who finished very high, number 7. As we mentioned, we didn't give any love to any of the Chiefs, really, but Mikey did mention his return numbers went down, and they did because they featured him more as a wide receiver, but he still had 7 touchdowns, 75 catches, over 1,100 yards receiving, so I thought that was also a good surprise. Can I talk about my bust now?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we all know who the bust is in wide receiverville. There's a couple of them, but yeah, Mike Evans. Oh, so disappointing. I just watch him have these magical seasons for Mikey, and then he ends up being a lemon-head, and he ends up being a lemon. Maybe I just need to change the name of my team. That's a problem. But he had a couple good games. He had double digits in his first 4 or 5 games, but he was never what you expected. He ended up finishing 20th overall, just 5 total touchdowns. Now, that was a product of the entire Tampa Bay crap fest that they have down there.
Right.
But, like, he's been on bad teams before and still put up numbers. But for him to have 66 receptions and 14 games played and didn't get 1,000 yards, super disappointing as the 4th overall wide receiver or the 4th overall pick.
Yeah, it's a good thing you took those numbers after week 14 instead after 12.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he had a pretty good, last few weeks there.
Well, he had one game. I was looking at this because you kind of mentioned that to me before. So he had 14 points in the semis, 11 in the finals. But yeah, 3, 3, 9, 9, 0, 1, 8. So he had some pretty stank weeks too, and he had good matchups in those weeks and didn't. It's not all his fault, but I think we were talking to. He's also very immature.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if the ball wasn't coming his way, he was bitching.
Well,
and you saw some of that bitching on the sideline too. Lots of offensive pass interferences that took away touchdowns.
What is that? Well, it's like you have an immature quarterback. You're going to have an immature wide receiver.
Probably true. If he's the leader of your team.
Yep.
Stupid Mike Evans.
Trickles down.
You got to throw Amari Cooper in that boat too while you're at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys liked Amari Cooper over Michael Crabtree.
Yeah.
Guess who didn't? Eric loved him some Michael Crabtree. Now, Michael Crabtree kind of disappeared towards the end, but for Michael Crabtree, he finished 21st. And I got to go to the second page, I think, to find Amari Cooper. Finished 40th. Cooper, 45 catches, 565 yards, 6 touchdowns. And Michael Crabtree, very similar, but he had 8 touchdowns and 56 catches. But overall, that whole team, outside of Marshawn Lynch, really. But, yeah, not very good. Derek Carr screwed the rest of everybody. But Michael Crabtree was still better.
Yeah, than Amari Cooper, yeah.
Yes, for sure. Des Bryant.
Yeah.
Right, Todd?
Yeah, Des Bryant.
Des Bryant, his days of being elite are gone.
Yeah, that's
done.
That's
just watching a couple Cowboys game, he just doesn't have it anymore.
And you know what? He complains too much. Like at least if you're not, he doesn't get that many targets anymore either. That's the problem too. He doesn't get that many targets.
They run the ball and they love Jason Witten.
Yeah, right. But I think too with him, it's just when he doesn't get the ball, pouts like a little baby. That's what wide receivers do.
Well, wide receivers do that, but at least show up and do it. Like,
but
he dropped some passes this year. But
at least do some blocking. Like, block. Like,
no,
you're
he's not going to do that.
I know. Well,
he only had 5 games of 10-plus points.
Yeah.
He had some 4s, some 3s, 5s. A lot of 5s. Oh, there's another 4.
There's a 9er in there?
Gross.
Yeah, so...
The other guy that I put in there, only because he was a first-round pick, and it correlates with Aaron Rodgers being hurt, but Jordy Nelson.
Mikey loved him some Jordy, didn't he?
Yeah.
A lot of Jordy love. And that's not all his fault, but he disappeared.
Yeah.
He was gone. It's one thing to not have your best quarterback. And I know Brett Hundley's not great, but Devontae Adams still scored 10 touchdowns this year.
And he got paid, too.
So is Jordy Nelson done?
Yeah.
Even, let's say Rodgers comes back 100%. Is he done?
No, he's fine as long as Rodgers is there.
But I don't know, Mikey. Like, he was non-existent.
Yeah.
Like, you mentioned first round. Let me see where he ended up. I think it was on my second page because he really didn't do much of anything after that. Okay, so he finished 37th behind Ted Ginn and in front of Marquise Lee.
Ugh.
And, he was so good in the beginning. 16 points. There was a 0 for whatever reason. Maybe
injury.
Yeah. 20, 19. Then he had 9 and 9. This is fine. 1, 5, 4, 3, 3, 5, 5, 4, and 3. Now, and his targets weren't non-existent. 7, 6, 8, 5, 6, 5. But to be, like, non-existent, I know it's one thing to have chemistry with the guy, but to do nothing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Unless Brett Hundley they're not buds. So where would you take Jordy Nelson if Aaron Rodgers is back? Is he still first round for you?
No, he's not a first round. Second round? Why not?
Second round? Okay. Yeah. So those are our wide receiver talks. Anything else did you guys want to mention? I think we pretty much hit everybody I had on my list. But, yeah, so interesting. Gotta like the wide receivers or really hate them. I hate wide receivers right now. Now to the MVP position. And Mikey and I were talking about this. It's probably the running back league again. And it's cyclical, right? It goes back and forth one way or another. Yeah. But who is your MVP at running back? We'll start with Mikey.
Alvin Kamara.
Really? Okay. Tell us why.
And this was really tough because you have Gurley and you have Le'Veon there too. But it's been a long, long time since I've seen a rookie running back be able to do consistently what he did every single week. Like, it was no fluke. Like, every week it was like, boom, 20 points. I got Kamara a couple times, all right?
It's an adjective now. Who's been Kamara'd?
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the Kamara owner, CUP, who didn't even make the playoffs, but that is not because of what Kamara did. Although he did get hurt in the first round of the playoffs this year. He got hurt in that Thursday night game real early, which didn't help Mark Ingram, by the way. Not that it mattered at the end. But yeah, I mean, you see these numbers, 12, 21, 10, 12, 13, 26, 22, 21, 31, 26, 18 in the semifinals, 12 in the championship, and he had 26 week 17 for whatever that means. But yeah, I mean, those are some amazing numbers. So Kamara was drafted in the 11th round by CUP, finished 4th, 13 games with 10-plus points, 7 with 20-plus. That's nuts.
That's pretty good.
Crazy.
That is nuts. So I could see him being MVP, just especially on value.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought? Like, when we were doing here's how we're not right. We didn't even mention Kamara in our rookie running backs. It was all about Fournette. I mean, there was a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Like, we may even talk about Jamal Williams, but we never mentioned Kamara.
Well,
and that doesn't help because Mark Ingram's there. And, I mean, I'm a big fan of Mark Ingram, but we just never thought about it, not to mention that in the past, well, Adrian Peterson wasn't there yet.
What do you mean? In the beginning of the season?
Right. Well, I'm talking about when we were talking about on the podcast.
Well, like toward the in the middle of the season. Like, I think the reason we didn't talk about it so much because we thought maybe all those carries were going to go to Ingram and Adrian Peterson.
Was Adrian Peterson traded before the season?
No.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. During the podcast, we were talking about, we didn't even mention Kamara, and I think it's just because, like, in the past, they've given it to everybody. But I don't know. He wasn't on the radar. He's on our radar now. Is he a first-round pick now?
Yes.
Mikey says yes. First round, based on what you saw. It is 1 year.
Second. I'd still go second round just because.
Well, we'll find out. We're going to do a mock draft first-round pick and see how that goes. We have to talk about Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
What a season. Mikey was kind of right in that regard where we had the Game of Thrones and Jon Snow he didn't expect a lot, but he ends up rising to the top, and wow, what a season. He led the MHA in points, 19 total touchdowns, 14 games, which is pretty much every game minus the one, with 10-plus, 2 40-plus games, and those came in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not that it helped Gonzo Cats too much, unfortunately.
It almost did.
But man, wow. Now that whole team got a resurgence.
Well, it helped.
If it was Jeff Fisher and none of us, but who knew that Sean McVay was going to come here and say, "Oh yeah, hey, that Todd Gurley guy's pretty good. Here you go." And wow, and he caught the ball too. I mean, he ended up he had 64 catches, almost 800 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns just on that. Oh, that sounds like MVP.
Yeah, that's
so good.
That sounds like a top 3 pick to me right there.
Wow. Yeah. We'll see where we draft him for sure. Todd, do you have anybody else other than those two guys?
I had Gurley as my MVP, and then my surprise was Kamara. That was about it.
Yeah. Le'Veon Bell had another good season.
Yep.
85 receptions. Played every game this year. He hadn't done that before, so that was really cool to see. He finished second overall. 9 touchdowns rushing, 2 touchdowns receiving. That number could go up depending on who the quarterback is next year. I just threw Mark Ingram in there because I thought he had a really good year. And despite having Kamara on his team, he had 6 games of 20-plus points, 54 receptions. So he had a really good year as well. Some of the surprises, I thought Duke Johnson had a pretty good year. He had 10 games with 10-plus. Todd knows he had him for a little bit till he traded him. Latavius Murray, I thought he was one of those guys I was right on. He ended up doing really well late. Jerick McKinnon's another one. Alex Collins, Marshawn Lynch, Rex Burkhead, Kenyon Drake. Those were some of the surprise guys. Anybody that surprised you or did you want to talk about? Or even a bust if you have one?
I have a bust.
There's a lot of busts.
Yeah.
As good as the running backs were, there was a lot of disgusting running back play out there.
Freeman, that's for
sure.
let
Mikey answer. I'd ask Mikey a question.
Well, as far as bust goes, I'm going to go to Jay Ajayi because that was somebody that we did talk about in the podcast.
We did.
And he was somebody that did get drafted in the second round that I thought shouldn't have. And, yeah, he's bust.
He got traded into a better situation and played okay, but he shouldn't have been second round.
Yeah, but it's what I explained in the podcast. He's not a bad player, but he's not what people are trying to make him out to be.
Jay Ajayi finished 29th overall in our point scoring system. He had 873 yards rushing, 2 total touchdowns. Can we count Zeke as a bust?
I don't think.
I'll just give you stats real quick before you're thinking about it. He finished 12th overall, drafted in the first round, played in 9 games, 166 points, 880 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 23 receptions, 231 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. That doesn't sound like bust, but how much did that really affect Aaron in the playoffs? A lot.
It did, but I can't. Somebody who finished 12th overall in 6 games, I'm not putting him as a bust. I'm sorry.
Sure, but I think it's more of the scenario where Aaron was having an okay season. And I know you guys heard me say, I said trade him. You got to trade him.
But you
trade him and get something for him, and then he's not there and Aaron doesn't make the playoffs.
But you knew the risk going in.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. But I still think you can put that inside bust category. Am I wrong?
But you can almost maybe put like an incomplete because he played for part of the season.
Look,
and
the options are MVP, surprise, or bust.
Well,
he's not a bust.
He's not a bust.
All right. Doug Martin, drafted in the third round, finished 58th.
Yeah, that's a bust.
Just 2 games with double digits.
That's probably where he was on my list.
That was awful. And one that Todd really liked, Ty Montgomery, 3rd round, finished 49th. He did get injured, and we're not here to bang on guys that were injured, but Aaron Jones took over that role while he was still healthy. Now, it didn't help that Aaron Rodgers got hurt, so there's a lot of circumstances with Ty Montgomery. But, there was a lot of, we had talked a lot about Ty Montgomery because he was kind of those polarizing guys. He's not really a running back. He's a receiver. He bulked up to be a running back. He's got Aaron Rodgers, as you mentioned. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. And just had 3 games with 11-plus points when he was healthy.
But again, that's what you want in a running back, especially in our league. He wants,
Yeah, but even when he was healthy, he wasn't a starter. Aaron Jones was in there. So they liked Aaron Jones better than Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when Ty Montgomery came back, after he, broke his ribs, I don't know if they were trying to ease him back into it or they were trying to be careful with him, possibly. But I mean, you don't play the woulda, shoulda. But I mean, if he didn't get injured, I think that ranking would have been. I think he'd have been a little bit higher.
Anything else you guys want to say on running backs at all? I was wrong about Jordan Howard. I didn't think he would be bad, but I didn't think he'd put up the numbers he did. I mean, he finished 10th. He's not a big catch guy, but he still had 9 touchdowns, over 1,100 yards, and a crappy Bears team. Yeah. I didn't give him a lot of credit, and I didn't have the option of drafting him, but I wouldn't have drafted him if he came my way in the 2nd round. And he played pretty well. DeMarco Murray was kind of a mixed bag. Melvin Gordon was solid until the end. LaShawn McCoy, another Mikey guy, he had a pretty good season.
How about Lamar Miller? He got drafted really high.
He was the 11th running back drafted. I was just kind of, he's average. He's bland. He's unsexy. But he was okay. He finished 13th. Just 6. He had 6 total. He had 36 receptions, was helped. He had 6 total touchdowns. He's nothing fancy. C.J. Anderson was fine. Alex Collins came out of nowhere. Frank Gore didn't quite get to 1,000, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I was wrong. I thought Marshawn Lynch would get 600 to 700. He ended up with close to 800, 7 touchdowns. He probably did better than I thought. Crowell sucked. We talked a lot about Crowell.
Yeah. A lot of blend in there.
The last thing I'll say about running backs is Mikey hates Giovanni Bernard and had him on his team at the end of the season. Not that he was wrong, because he put up some points, but for as much as he hates a guy, he had him on his team.
Yeah.
Tight ends. There's not a lot. Let's eliminate tight ends next year. Anybody else? Hands up. Anybody else? Let's just get rid of tight ends. What a crappy position.
Yeah.
But we knew that coming in because they were crappy last year, and so now they're crappy this year. I will say I win that.
Yeah.
Zach Ertz was great.
Fair.
Although I didn't play him in the right spot. We'll talk about that later. But Travis Kelce was the first. He was the 2nd overall. Gronk. Now here's my question. I pledged that he was a bust. He finished 2nd overall, but based on when he was drafted, does he deserve to be a bust? 69 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
It's pretty good for a tight end.
Yeah.
In the 3rd round? Would you take that in the 3rd round? That's not a bad for tight end, but is that bad for what was expected of him in the 3rd round? Quayne, 2 seconds after I think it was me, I was in front of him. But as soon as that person was done before him, he picked, this is easy, I'm picking Gronk. Was it worth it?
I say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I say no. But Jimmy Graham didn't do anything except score 10 touchdowns, but he was inconsistent. But he was the 4th overall. See how and Evan Ingram finished 5th.
Yeah. Well, Eli Manning had to throw it to somebody because the wide receiver core, injuries galore. Yeah, he had to throw it to somebody. Either that or throw it to himself. But yeah, Ingram, rookie, so and you have to think, going into next year, there might be some, even with Odell coming back, but
If Eli's even there.
yeah, if Eli's even there,
There's a lot of offseason questions that are really like
you're gonna affect fantasy
magnifying
football.
exactly how it's gonna look next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, tight ends. Mikey was solid with his Kyle Rudolph pick. He had him as kind of a sleeper guy. He finished 6th. I said Delaney Walker. He finished 7th. I also like Jack Doyle. Finished 8th. How about Jason Witten? 61 catches, 543 yards, 5 touchdowns. Still doing it.
Yeah.
Just
man,
saying.
Witten, yeah.
He's still doing it. Guys that were garbage. Hunter Henry. Although he was owned by like four of our owners this year. Todd dropped him. I even picked him up, dropped him.
Yeah, Todd gave up on him quick.
Yeah, Todd. There's a lot of it. He finished 13th, 45 catches, 579, 4 touchdowns. Garbage. How about Vernon Davis? He kind of had a resurgence for a couple weeks, although he screwed me in the worst possible time. Julius Thomas. I know that was someone Mikey kind of mentioned as a sleeper. He finished 21st. Garbage.
Yeah.
Terrible position. Antonio Gates, 28th. Greg Olson, but he was injured. Remember Vance McDonald in that trade? There was a lot of talk about that.
I know. We kept telling everybody to stay away from Jordan Reed. So.
Yep, Mikey was very vehemently saying that he's going to be a bust, and he was absolutely right about that. Okay, so that's the positions. I'll go through defenses. I didn't have you guys do any defenses, but this is why you never draft defenses early. People don't listen to us, but this is why I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't. So here's where we'll go through the top 5 defenses drafted. Denver was the first, obviously. They would end up finishing 15th overall amongst defenses. New England, the second one. They were round 11. They finished 13th. Pittsburgh, the third defense in the 12th, finished 12th. Houston was the 4th overall defense in the 12th round, finished 26th. Now, I mean, obviously J.J. Watt, but you figure there are other parts there, and gross. In Seattle, who's always drafted high, they were drafted 5th. They actually finished in the top 10 at number 9. The only defense, if you count Seattle. Outside of Seattle, there's only one defense that was drafted that finished in the top 5. You want to guess who?
No, that's easy. Jags.
That is incorrect.
I
don't think they were drafted.
Yeah. We drafted them.
In fact, looking at our draft, 3 teams didn't even draft defenses, and I was one of them. But there was one defense that was drafted. It was the very last defense drafted, and they ended up finishing 1st overall.
Minnesota?
Incorrect. Mikey, I'll give you one guess. You don't know who the top defense scoring in our team, in our league?
I figured it would have been Jacksonville.
No. I'll go through that. But it is actually Baltimore by the champion Kilgore Trout. They were picked in the 17th round, and they ended up finishing 1st. Rams were 2nd. Jacksonville was 3rd. Actually, they were tied for 2nd. They both had 221 points. Baltimore had 222, so they were right next to them. And Philadelphia, Detroit, Chargers, Carolina, Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans, and Kansas City. So stop it, folks. Stop drafting defenses in the first 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. Wait to the 16th or 17th round. Stop it. You're embarrassing yourselves. Except for Kilgore, and he picked Baltimore in the 17th round, won championship. So there's that. All right, so we're going to move on, and we're going to go through the first three rounds. Now, we're going to go into depth or anything. I'm just going to name it off, and we're just going to say injured, MVP, he was fine, he was good, he was great, he was a bust. Okay? So we're going to go through this and just kind of see how this goes. David Johnson, injured right away.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell, MVP.
MVP.
Antonio Brown, MVP. Mike Evans, bust. Julio Jones, not a first-round pick.
Not anymore, he's not.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
We weren't wrong about him, by the way. Remember we had that discussion like, we all like Mike Evans and Odell Beckham better. You liked him, Jordy Nelson over him. He just doesn't score touchdowns. And as bad as Matt Ryan regressed last year, too, I don't think that's getting better.
No. And you know what? With Julio, a couple of games they saw, he looked kind of lost out there, too, a little bit in the sense of like.
He's just in the wrong offense. He needs to be on a different team.
Yeah. But
like if you put him with Matt Stafford, different guy. But that's enough. Odell Beckham, injured. Devontae Freeman, not a first round.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
He had a couple of good games, but something happened with him, and I don't know if it was the new offensive coordinator.
But wasn't he in the concussion protocol too a little bit throughout the season?
He still played 13 games, but had 27 receptions and 842 yards rushing. So he could have gotten to 1,000, but that's not really.
It's a change in offense. It destroyed
Tevin
what they were
Coleman
doing.
too. Yeah, it just wasn't good. Jordy Nelson, bust in my opinion. Zeke, I thought he was a bust, but we all have our opinions on that. We talk about him. Drew Brees, fine, but not a first-round pick. Now, it worked out. It's so funny because Kilgore's had Brees on his team before, and he would put up just 5,000 yards, 400 completions, had an offseason, and he won the championship with Drew Brees. Go figure that. I read he had his highest completion percentage ever in the history of the NFL for one season. It was like over 75% or something like that. And he threw less touchdowns than he ever had. I mean, he finished 5th in our league, but 22 touchdowns? What?
You can wait.
But when you have Kamara and you have Mark Ingram doing what they do, that's fine. LaShawn McCoy, I thought he was fine. Good player. DeMarco Murray, not a first round anymore.
Nope.
A.J. Green was fine. We're in the second round now. Melvin Gordon, really good. Jay Ajayi, Mikey, bust.
Yeah.
Jordan Howard was good. Aaron Rodgers was injured. Todd Gurley, value at that pick.
Jesus.
MVP.
Yeah.
Lamar Miller was fine. How about Michael Thomas? 2 years in a row. One of the ones that Todd was right about.
Yeah, he's a volume guy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He's you always
He
think
had
of that.
such a good rookie year.
Yeah.
Was that his rookie year last year? Yeah. And then, we
You
don't know. Brandon Cook's gone. We don't know. But he was good.
Well, I think in one of the busts, I would say Brandon Cooks was one of my busts.
I wouldn't call him a bust, but he wasn't I thought he wasn't going to be good. That was one of the guys I was anti against. But he was
he's the
third round
he's
guy.
the play him on the right week guy.
Yeah. Let's see. Doug Baldwin. He was all right. He had some bad weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, he ended up finishing, let's see, looking through my wide receiver rankings, 14th, 6 touchdowns. Not for a second round.
They spread it around a lot more than they did before.
They did.
Yeah.
Yep.
With
That's
Lockett.
right. For as much as Russell Wilson was the number 1 quarterback, I mean, there was a lot of Paul Richardson, Tyler Lockett, Graham. Graham is what killed Baldwin because he threw 10 touchdowns to him.
Yeah.
So there's that. That was disappointing. Mari Cooper. Oh, I mean, actually, it was Tom Brady. Tied for first. That's
Yeah.
good. I still think early, but whatever. Des Bryant, bust.
Yep.
Mari Cooper, bust. Brandon Cooks, third round.
I say he's a bust just because I thought I was expecting more out of him being attached to Tom Brady.
I mean, Brandon Cooks ended up finishing 18th, 60 catches, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, you're right in saying he's the long option, but I don't think he was what everybody thought. So I guess that's fine with bust. Ty Montgomery, bust. Christian McCaffrey, great. How about Christian McCaffrey? For him, he ended up finishing 11th, 75 catches, 7 total touchdowns. Now, he didn't rush between the tackles as much as we thought he was going to, but
That'll change.
that helped Belt Sanders get close to the playoffs. So Jonathan Stewart's still around, as much as we don't like him. Dalvin Cook, injured. Oh, he was so good in the beginning. Rob Gronkowski, third round, still high but good.
I say it's fair.
It's fair, fine. I had good. DeAndre Hopkins, MVP, one of the MVPs. Keenan Allen, great. Doug Martin, stank. Demaryius Thomas, I was surprised he had 83 catches.
Well, he picked it up like in the last few weeks, get his stats built up.
Yeah.
How many drops did he have? That's
I don't know. Third round, maybe a little high. But I mean, 83
There were games
catches.
where it's like, what? He still plays on the team?
Yeah. Leonard Fournette, good.
Yeah, good, yeah.
T.Y. Hilton, bust. C.J. Anderson, good. So there's that, first 3 rounds. Interesting. I always like to go back and look and see where everybody – so many injuries. Let's see. Okay, I have this written down somewhere. Let's see. In terms of – I don't know if we'll do this. Do we want to go through the – I have a lot – what went right, what went wrong when we went to look back on our podcasts. Do we want to go and do that?
Why not?
Well, I just worry about time. We'll go through it, and if it's too long, I'll edit it out.
Mikey went right. Mikey
Shut up.
went right.
Mark Ingram, Eric Reich. Eric was right. You guys picked Adrian Peterson over Mark Ingram.
Yeah, we were.
So, wrong about that. Todd was right about Marshawn Lynch being a viable fantasy option. I mentioned that. Eric right about Latavius Murray as he was underrated. Todd wrong about Jamal Charles. Should have been a 7th-round pick. And he had a terrible season. Mikey was right about LeGarrette Blount. I did say between 600 and 700 yards, but I thought he had more touchdowns. I was right about Danny Woodhead. Body not going to hold up. Surely didn't. We were all right about Eddie Lacy. Garbage.
True
And
that.
pretty much any Seattle running back.
Yeah.
Although, when I was going through the transactions today, a lot of people picked up and dropped Thomas Rawls. I don't know.
Well, anybody just looking for any kind of starter in that
I guess that's
backfield.
true. Yes, that's true. We were all wrong about Alshon Jeffrey. All of us. Like 9 touchdowns. Jesus. All wrong about Terrell Pryor. Remember that Terrell Pryor talk?
Oh, yeah.
Whew.
He was going to be.
That might be the bust of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was bad.
Should give us
Bad.
But-
Now, he did get injured, but he was so bad when he was on the field.
I'll say this about him: for as much hype as he had, and we probably talked about him early in the podcast, people started to see it early because it had played on in the draft where he didn't get drafted. Like I remember, he was falling. Like I expected him to be up there, but he didn't. He didn't get drafted all that high. I think he fell maybe 5th round.
I'm trying to find out where he was drafted. Thank God this isn't live. Let's see. I was trying to find him. Do you remember who drafted him? I don't remember who drafted him either. So in the 6th round, drafted by the Gonzo Cats. So
Yeah.
he did fall. So there must have been something prior to that. Dun-dun-dun.
Hey, look at that.
Okay, let's just keep going.
Okay.
I was right about Eric Decker. Didn't believe in him. I was right about Brandon Cooks. He finished 18th. Mike was wrong about Brandon Cooks. I don't remember what I wrote about that, but that's what I said. Todd was wrong about Deshaun Jackson. Mike and Eric were right about Deshaun Jackson.
We will always be right about Deshaun Jackson.
Todd and Mikey were wrong about Martellus Bennett. A lot of Martellus Bennett, not just from you guys, from everybody. Everybody. Oh, Martellus Bennett, Green Bay is going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
Even went back to New England and was terrible.
Yep.
So Martellus Bennett, garbage. Todd was spot on. Leonard Fournette, 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Nice job, Todd. I don't get to say that very often, but I'm going to say it there.
All right. Appreciate that.
I was right about Fournette being a top 15 running back. Mikey did say 1,000 yards on Fournette, but not high in the touchdowns because Jags is such a tease, and Jags aren't in the playoffs. Go figure that.
Right.
We were all right about Christian McCaffrey. I was right about Dalvin Cook for a while. I was right that Rashard Matthews had more points than Corey Davis, and you both had Corey Davis.
Yeah.
Corey
You're right.
Davis, and I'm the one who ended up drafting Corey Davis after it's all said and done, but never did anything. His best week was his final week, and I think he had 9 points.
Yeah.
Mikey, Todd, okay, that's the same. That was before. Mikey was wrong that all rookie quarterbacks would suck.
Well,
Not a lot, but Deshaun Watson is a pretty big outlier.
Yeah.
it's like a couple games.
Mikey was right about Todd Gurley in the Jon Snow show. Todd was right about Rob Kelly, Cersei, stay away. Let's see. Mike and I were right about Ty Montgomery. We mentioned that. How about Martavis Bryant? That was the first thing we said on the very first podcast. Mikey said, Martavis is back. And I don't know what that meant, but he never really showed up.
Yeah. He wanted out of Pittsburgh too. He was
Martavis finished 47th overall.
Oh, Lord mighty.
44 receptions and 14 games played. It's not like he was injured and they just held him out. 14 games played, 3 touchdowns total.
Todd's boo.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right that Julio wouldn't be a top 5 wide receiver. All wrong that Mike Evans would be a top 5 wide receiver. We were all right about Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
Todd was right about Hopkins being better than Deshaun Watson, or better when Deshaun Watson was there. You went off to go get water, I think, but we were praising you because you kept saying Deshaun Watson would be the starting quarterback when it started, and then Hopkins would be better before it, and you were right about that. So good job there. I was right about Dez Bryant. My quote was, ready to throw him away. Needs to be thrown away.
Yeah, he's probably going to, at this point. So.
I'm sure the Cowboys wish they could too, but
Yeah.
there's too much money invested. We mentioned Crabtree over Cooper. We were all wrong about Alex Smith, and obviously we talked about Kilgore Trout, and not. Although I did draft. Did we mention I drafted for him a little bit? I drafted for Kilgore because he was in Alaska and couldn't get to him. I'm just putting that out there.
All right. I think the whole NFL was wrong about Alex Smith. Let's put that clear.
Let's give something that Aaron was right about. He was on one podcast. He said that Keenan Allen, this would be the year to buy low on him, and he was fantastic this year. Mikey was right that Devontae Adams would have 10 or more touchdowns. He had 10 on the dot. Nice shot, Mikey. Eric was wrong about Willie Snead. Remember Willie Snead?
Oh, that guy?
What a terrible season. Wow. Wrong on that one. We were all wrong about Jeremy Maclin. I don't know why. I don't know why I said I like Jeremy Maclin, but we were all wrong about him. Obviously, I was wrong about Adam Thielen not being a number one wide receiver. We mentioned that. Todd right about Larry Fitzgerald posting similar numbers as the year before. We talked about Big Ben. The board bets, we mentioned the Thielen. The other board bet, which I was also wrong on, but I mentioned on the podcast I was not happy about the board bet, but Rob Kelly. Let's just say we were both wrong.
No.
Come on.
A board bet is a
Rob
board
Kelly
bet.
versus Paul Perkins. We were both wrong. They both stunk.
God, that one?
Yeah, one stunk more.
Yes, they did. Paul Perkins had 14 total points. Rob Kelly, before he got hurt, 38 total points. And that wasn't like in 2 games. That was like a portion of the season. But Mikey won both the board bets, so congratulations, sir. Anything else that you guys want to talk about this season? I think we covered a lot of ground, probably way too much. I'm probably going to, I think we're close to almost 2 hours, maybe a little less than that. But I was hoping to do some MHA trivia, and I didn't get a lot of it. I'll ask one trivia question, and it's a running back question. So between Giovanni Bernard and Joe Mixon, who had the most points?
Joe Nixon.
I'll say Gio Bernard just because he had an incredible last couple of weeks. It probably put him over.
It did. Bernard had 109 points to Mixon's 106.
Jeez.
And that's one of the guys I did not like was Mixon, and he did not end up doing very well. He had a couple okay weeks, but. So that's it. The 2017 MHA season in the books. We all made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Todd, 3rd overall. Mikey, 2nd overall. And we'll see if we do a live draft next year.
Yeah.
I think we should.
I think we should.
Bad taste in my mouth at the end of that draft last year. But that's okay. I'll probably be ready for it. But it was fun. Yeah. Next year, I think it'll be year 16. So, man, just keeps on going. We'll see if the league, again, is low scoring. As I mentioned, it was definitely a down year for fantasy sports. We'll see if those quarterbacks can get back into it.
And pray.
But you should still wait on quarterbacks.
And pray for no more injuries. An injury-free.
Oh, you know what we didn't do?
An injury-free year.
We didn't do.
Do we all agree on that?
We didn't do a mock.
We do the mock. Let's do the mock. Let's do it. I'll make it work. Okay. So Mikey, Todd, Eric. Mikey, Todd, Eric. Mikey, Todd, Eric. Mikey, Todd, Eric. So Mikey, who is? Hold on, I'm gonna get a sheet of paper out. Hopefully I don't screw this up. Maybe Todd. Last time we did a mock. Todd really freaked me out because he didn't go David Johnson number 1. Hold on, 9, 10. I'm going to do a lot of editing. This show is going to take a lot of time to edit. Okay, so Mikey, who is your number 1 overall pick next season?
David Johnson.
Wow, without hesitation. And just give me a quick reason why. For a guy that was injured all season long.
I don't think a lot changes. I mean, it wasn't a knee injury, first of all. It's an injury to a wrist.
He broke his wrist.
So if he was the best player coming into last year, then why wouldn't he be the best player coming into this year? I mean, nothing changes for me.
Bruce Arians is gone.
Yeah.
He just retired today. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I'm just saying that's different.
And
Larry Fitzgerald could retire.
And you don't know what you're going to get.
But you still believe in him? Let's say
that
Fitzgerald is gone.
Him.
Well, maybe. I mean, then you're having 9 in the box because I don't believe in the rest of that garbage they have at wide receiver. But, I mean, Carson Palmer could be gone. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of changes that could happen in Arizona next year.
Larry Fitzgerald's gone. David Johnson might catch over 100 passes.
He might have to.
Yeah.
All right, so he's going David Johnson. Todd, you have the 2nd overall pick. Who are you going with?
Oh, going consistency. Le'Veon Bell.
All right, Le'Veon Bell. And now, obviously, him being on your team helps a lot with that. But what if Big Ben's not there next year?
Then Le'Veon Bell probably going to rush for 1,500 yards.
All right, so interesting. So pretty kind of standard, kind of what we had at the beginning of last year. My 3rd overall pick will be Todd Gurley. Yeah. It has to be.
Yeah.
What a fantastic – it's not just he ran the ball well, too. He caught the ball extremely well. And he's a young guy in a system that's going to be the same next year unless they go back to being the regular Rams and we're garbage, but I don't see that happening. So many great weapons on that team, still very young. I think you have to go Todd Gurley at 3 overall.
And you have a quarterback that works. That's the biggest thing because that was the biggest thing the year before. Like they didn't have a quarterback. I mean, Goff was still trying to figure it out, so that's why they stacked the box. That's why Todd Gurley had didn't have a great season the year before. So yeah, totally agree with you on that one.
So David Johnson first, Le'Veon Bell second, Todd Gurley third. Pretty much running back heavy so far. Mikey, is it going to be 4 running backs in a row?
Nope, Antonio Brown.
Back to Antonio Brown. That's a good pick. What if Big Ben's gone?
Antonio Brown.
Still Antonio Brown? You still feel comfortable?
Still feel comfortable. I mean, the guy is just that good.
Yes, he is phenomenal. Just, I mean, he's not even like your prototype. He's not a Calvin Johnson type of guy.
No.
He's 5'11". He's 1 inch taller than me, I think. So that's pretty incredible. All right, Todd, who are you going with the 5th overall? That first wide receiver off the board.
I'm going Zeke.
All right. You're not worried that having that time off, the offensive line is struggling a little bit more than it used to. You're not concerned that he's not going to be able to put up the similar numbers.
I think now going into next season, knowing, okay, he's not going to have the suspension looming every single week, worrying about if he's going to play or not. I think he's going to do what, Tom Brady did with his suspension, kind of flip the middle finger to the NFL and, just run all over people.
All right, so 4 running backs, 1 wide receiver. This is a tough one, but I'm going to go with my list. I'm going to go with Odell Beckham. I'm kind of hoping that Eli comes back because I think they have such a good rapport. Unless they draft Saquon Barkley from Penn State, they're still not going to have a running game. And Odell, despite some of the downfalls that we've seen from Eli Manning, he still puts up incredible numbers. So over Julio, over Mike Evans, recency bias maybe, but I'm going to go with Odell, even though he did not play for most of the season. I think he got hurt in week 2 or 3, but so that's wide receiver number 2 off the board. Mikey, it's back to you at pick number 7.
Pick number 7 is going to be Alvin Kamara.
Ooh, Alvin Kamara, a guy that was drafted really late, but everything seems like it'd be the same for him next year, right?
Yeah, and I just love the receiving upside that he gives you.
Mikey is truly enamored with Alvin Kamara, but why not? He was so good this year, so good. All right, Todd, back to you at pick number 8.
Kareem Hunt.
All right, I like that.
I mean, obviously burst onto the scene like gangbusters in the first game of the season, So what else is gonna really change? I mean, if Alex Smith does decide to leave, I mean they've got a decent rookie quarterback that showed some little promise. I mean, obviously against the Broncos, but still, I think Hunt's gonna continue on. So.
Yeah, there was a point in the middle of the season where he wasn't as good because I think Kansas City got away from him and they started losing games, and then he started going back to him and winning games. I'm glad Andy Reid figured that out.
Yeah, right.
Not that I'm a Chiefs fan, but they're lucky they figured that out beforehand.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go with the 3rd wide receiver off the board, DeAndre Hopkins, who had more points than Antonio Brown and has Deshaun Watson coming back. Oh, man, the ceiling. So delicious. I could just taste it on my fingers. Oh, man, DeAndre Hopkins, so good. With a full season of Deshaun Watson, the sky's the limit for him in that pick. I like that pick.
Agree.
I like that pick. I'm just going to say, I don't care what y'all think. I like that pick.
I agree with you. I mean,
So far, David Johnson, the first pick, Le'Veon Bell, number 2, Todd Gurley, number 3, the first wide receiver, Antonio Brown, Ezekiel Elliott at number 5, Odell Beckham at number 6, Alvin Kamara at number 7. Man, I might switch that DeAndre Hopkins up there with Odell Beckham. Anyway, Kamara at number 7, Kareem Hunt at number 8, Hopkins at number 9. Mikey, who do you have at number 10?
Back to the well to LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, LaShawn McCoy. Wow, I didn't have him in my top 20. Or top 10. Top 10, excuse me. But Buffalo.
I mean, 70% of their offense runs through him.
Yep.
So unless you're telling me they're going to, and they go through the draft or free agency to get some receiver help over there, it's going to be the same thing all over again. Mr. Consistency.
Mr. Consistency. And I think he turns 30 next year.
Yeah.
So still right there, still not over the hill. Todd, who are you picking at number 11?
Leonard Fournette.
Leonard Fournette.
I mean, the only option in Jacksonville. I mean, at running back. I mean, he's proven he can carry the load. So why not? And especially at number 11. I mean, a starting running back who's going to be consistent all year long. Hell yeah.
Can we disagree with Todd on that pick? I didn't disagree with anything up until now. But you would take Leonard Fournette over proven guys like Mark Ingram, Melvin Gordon, maybe Jordan Howard, although he finished higher. But like Mark Ingram and Melvin Gordon are 2 guys that finished ahead of him in this great season. But I mean, I guess you're figuring that Leonard Fournette takes another step forward after what he did in his rookie year.
I don't have to worry about him getting carries away from like Ingram or anything like that either.
Although Ingram was better when Kamara was around.
Yeah, he was.
Let me tell you, that Thursday night game where he got hurt, when Kamara got hurt in that first play, at least that first drive, Mark Ingram stunk after that.
Yeah.
All right, so for the last pick, I'm going to go with Mark Ingram. 54 catches. I think he can duplicate that. He had 12 touchdowns despite having Kamara on his team. It's amazing. He finished 4th and 5th in total points. He's the first guy they go to, and Kamara comes in. We've seen him do some special teams, running around, catching the ball, but he also does it as well. So I went back to Mark Ingram at number 12. Any discrepancies? The only one I had Melvin Gordon and then Michael Thomas in my top 12. I did not have LaShawn McCoy.
I had Dalvin Cook instead of Mark Ingram in mine.
Okay. That's not a bad one either. So there's your first round. So that'll do it. Another MHA season in the books. I finished 5th with a playoff win. You ended up going 3rd overall. And Mikey finished 2nd overall. I think people should listen to this podcast more.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are actually listening, but
I think you two are.
it helps.
I think you two are learning some
oh
things.
yes, thanks, Mikey.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, we really look to you when we need really good advice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I text Mikey on Sunday sometimes, and he was wrong a couple times, but he was right also.
I mean,
a
I
couple
said
times.
maybe I should ask Mikey more than Matthew Berry.
No, he's my guy. You find your own Mikey Rennell.
Sorry. It's all right.
Ask Aaron. Maybe he
Aaron.
can help you. Notorious CUP. I'll give you his.
What about-
Kilgore Trout. I'll give you his.
What about
text.
Marco Fabiano? How about him?
There you go. He may not answer you though.
Well, he's a Dallas
But guys,
fan,
it was
so.
fun. Last thing, any New Year's resolutions? Anything that you guys thinking about? More podcasts? Is that a New Year's resolution? Should we do more podcasts?
Yeah, these are fun. I enjoy. I mean, this is what makes sports in general just awesome. We get to sit around and just talk about this stuff, whether it's on a podcast or just chilling. And I think that's good going in 2018. So.
Agreed.
Agreed. All right, so we'll see if we can do more podcasts for you. And we'll wrap up the 2017 season. Thank you all. Hopefully, maybe Peter will come back. We'll find out he might be dead. I haven't heard from him. He hadn't changed his lineup since week 6, so hopefully he's okay. But Eric Lansing, Todd Diamond, Mikey Renault, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next year, 2018, MHA Podcast. MHA Podcast. MHA Podcast.
MHA Podcast.